Call of Duty has released their long-awaited blog post for Season 2 changes coming in Warzone and multiplayer. It still leaves a lot of fans with much left to be desired. Now, I'm sure many of you watching this video have already seen or heard about the blog post, but I want to tell you how this ties into something I like to call the Warzone paradox. Hey guys, thank you for clicking on this video. So let's get right into it. The Warzone paradox. Now, this is something that I think about a lot when I think about the current state of Call of Duty and how they treat Warzone between Call of Duty. So let's start off by the blog post because that's the most recent bit of news, and I feel like this really solidifies my point. So if you take a look at the blog post, you'll see a lot of changes coming to Warzone and DMZ. Now, I'm not a big Battle Royale guy, but I am aware of what the Warzone players like to see, and it seems like everything that they added in this blog post is exactly what everybody's been waiting for. Which is honestly a breath of fresh air, considering the lack of changes that came from the beta to the launch of Modern Warfare 2 and Warzone. I'm glad that they're actually listening to the community and giving them what they want. And ultimately, if you're unaware that the player count numbers have been dropping in recent months due to Warzone and Modern Warfare 2 just making these unpopular changes that no one really asked for, I'm excited to see when Season 2 comes out how these numbers actually jump back up, not just because of the content, but hopefully they stay up on a steady level. Now, also, DMZ is getting a lot of changes too. DMZ being a new mode to Call of Duty, I'm glad to see that they're supporting it full-fledged like they are in Warzone and multiplayer. Now, maybe I'm just unaware. I don't see that big of a community in DMZ as Warzone and multiplayer, but I'm glad that they're putting in the forefront and putting in that effort for the players that are really into that. As we know that in the past they didn't really do the best with some other game modes. Spec Ops. Sorry, I got a little cold there. Now, this part I'm going to talk about is where fans are getting a little frustrated or feeling like they're left out. And these are the multiplayer fans and core multiplayer. And like I said, I'm not a big Warzone guy or Battle Royale guy. So I fall right into this category. And essentially, I feel the same way as most community does. Modern Warfare 2 suffered from a lot of changes that felt like change for the sake of change. But not only that, the community has voiced their opinions in the form of content creators, Twitter posts, some toxic, some not, some constructive, some not. You already know how the Call of Duty community is. But a lot of things being different for whatever reason that the community isn't happy about, and just keeping those changes, I feel like it just shows to the community that multiplayer isn't really their bread and butter anymore. And that's what Call of Duty's always been known for. Just as much as the community waits for the new game announcement, the multiplayer trailer, announcement, event, whatever that they do is always what the Call of Duty community looks forward to, even the Warzone player. Now, we'll be honest, when the beta came out and all these changes were implemented, I was very optimistic still, because I understand that Call of Duty is trying to move into a new direction with COD 2.0 and kind of leave everything else behind. But I don't feel like it works for Call of Duty, because it's still Call of Duty at the end of the day. One thing that they're changing in Season 2 is how fast you charge your ultimate perk and bonus perk. When the beta came out in Weekend 1, it was very slow, and you had these perks later in the game, essentially making you have 2 perks instead of 3 throughout the match, or at least halfway through, which obviously varied depending on how you did. But for the most part, it was halfway to 75%, then you would get your full 4 perks instead of the standard 3 that you have throughout the game. Now, while I didn't understand the change, I was all for it and giving it a try because you don't know if it'll work. Boy, was I wrong. So the charge time was really slow regardless of how well you did. So in Weekend 2, they lowered the charge time on it. And honestly, it felt a lot better. If I'm being completely honest, with the charge time that they had for Weekend 2, you might as well have just had the old perk system and just given us 3 perks, well balanced, that we can use throughout the whole game, just like we've always had. Then the launch came, and they found a happy medium, or just a medium, between the Weekend 1 beta and the Weekend 2 beta. And it kind of worked. In my opinion, the best of a bad situation, if we have to have this perk system, it wasn't a bad medium for it. Will I prefer faster charge times? Yes, but then it kind of nullifies that perk system. And now they're changing it back to the way that was in Weekend 2. Now, I'm not complaining because I prefer the old perk system a lot more than I prefer the new one. But at that point, just change the perk system. I'm still not sure why that just couldn't be a thing. Some other choices I feel like really hurt gaming sessions where I want to be on for a long time, but it kind of just feels like work. But that's neither here that's neither here or there. That's not really what I'm here to talk about. Now, we did get some good news when it comes to audio and footstep and audio occlusion. They took out the occlusion system that they had during launch because of a bug that they was working out, and they say that's returning in Season 2. Now, honestly, I can remember that Weekend 1 of the beta had pretty good footstep audio. I feel like it worked a lot better in Modern Warfare 2019. So if that's the system that they're re-implementing and refining, I can't wait to hear how that sounds and how that's going to go through. I feel like it'll make the game a lot better. Now, if they only make Dead Silence a perk, that's another issue. Or at least a field upgrade with that dumbass ping, bro. Like, I honestly feel like if you're going to put Dead Silence as a field upgrade, you might as well just not put a ping. I mean, like, why make it even more nerfed than it already was when it was just a perk? And Dead Silence didn't even make your footsteps silent when it was a perk. It just dampened them. Then we have ranked and hardcore game modes coming to Season 2. I'm not sure what to say about this one. 90% of me is very happy that these game modes are coming. I don't play hardcore that much, but I know that there's a pretty big hardcore community, and I just love to see the Call of Duty community happy. Even though it's only like 50% of the Call of Duty community happy at all times, because you know how we are. But I feel like this should be something at launch. They also mentioned limited time modes and a survey that's going to go out every month for the community to select what limited time mode will be there for that month. I'm not a big fan of limited time modes. I'm not going to touch on it. It's cool that they're going to ask the community what they want to see, so I'm all for it. But if it was up to me, or if I had things the way I wanted, we wouldn't have any limited time modes. They'd just be there. And if they wanted to add something, they would add it. But clearly I'm very old school when it comes to Call of Duty. Now, just running through this blog post, it leaves me with one feeling. The multiplayer didn't get that TLC that Warzone and DMZ did. And it's like, why? I mean, why can't we also get what we want the way that Warzone and DMZ did? So this is how it ties into the Warzone paradox. And this is what I mean. Warzone, even though it's free to play, has been Call of Duty's most successful line of anything, I feel. I feel like Call of Duty has skyrocketed in popularity since Warzone 1. Now, that could just be the influx of gaming popularity in general. Not going to get into it. It does make me happy to see Call of Duty succeeding. Even with games that they struggled with keeping alive or selling, like Vanguard, Warzone was always there for its players. And even though I don't play Warzone, I don't play Battle Royale, I didn't play Vanguard either. I was a year off of Call of Duty for me. It's always good to see that Call of Duty surviving because of Warzone. Now, here comes the paradox. With that being said, Modern Warfare 2019's multiplayer and Vanguard's multiplayer took a severe dip in content. The reason I leave Cold War out of there, I feel like Cold War really did have a good content, steady, fun multiplayer. I feel like Cold War had a really good multiplayer, just to say it as that. Also, it's my favorite CDL in recent memory, but that's kept Call of Duty alive. Now, I know that a lot of assets will go into Warzone and it's going to sacrifice multiplayer, which is fine and I get it. So this is why I bring up the blog post. They made all these changes, make sure that DMZ players got what they wanted, Warzone players got what they wanted, and they gave multiplayer players a little bit of what they wanted. We wanted rank play, we got it. We wanted a change to the perk system, we got it. Hardcore, we got it. I feel like that's mainly it in terms of things on the top of everyone's list to change. Oh, footsteps too. This could have been a chance to have a World War II like multiplayer overhaul that really could have brought back those player numbers really, really high. As I'm sure you all know, that numbers have been dropping in terms of player count, at least when it comes to Steam charts. But I feel like there is a correlation there between consoles and players that play on Battle.net, including me. I'm one of them that haven't played in a minute. Now, this turns into another problem that I see or feel or just think I notice. And I want you guys to let me know in the comments if you feel the same way, honestly, because I want to know if it's just me. I feel like changes that Infinity Ward, Treyarch, Raven, whatever, just Sledgehammer, and the other studios make, I feel like those changes that may be good for Warzone in terms of gameplay elements, weapon balancing, footstep audio, things like that, I feel like they only benefit Warzone and hurt multiplayer. I'll definitely tell you that I don't know how their development works. I don't know how game design works. So I don't know if it's Call of Duty and Activision trying to keep everything uniform across the board between multiplayer and Warzone to really have this seamless continuity, or it's whatever they put in Warzone because it's integrated with the game that's out now, that it also affects the mainline game that's out now, or all games connected, because now Call of Duty is a network. It isn't like it used to be where every game was kind of its own thing. Through Warzone, Call of Duty's connected. Now this next part I find to be absolutely true, and I want to hear your opinion on this part as well. But if you disagree, honestly, you're wrong. I'm just gonna say it straight up. Call of Duty has no place for operators, at least in multiplayer. Operators were brought into Call of Duty because of Warzone. And I'm not talking about specialists. I know there's that argument. Specialists had a different purpose because they had their specialist ability or ultimate, whatever you want to call it, that made them unique. Operators, the only thing unique about them is who they are. In an FPS game like Call of Duty, pretty much your gun is your character. That's what you customize, that's what you see most of the time, that's what you use. It is what it is. Now, am I saying that there's no place for customization of an operator or character in Call of Duty? No. But if you're filling my battle pass with a lot of skins for operators and things like that for operators I don't use, you're just kind of filling my battle pass with a lot of useless stuff to me, rather than filling it with items and equipment pieces like Advanced Warfare had, where I could use it on my operator whether I wanted to or not. If it's aesthetically pleasing to me, then yes. If no, then no. But you take away that option when you give a certain skin for a certain operator that I don't use. Now, Warzone is different. Now, again, I'm going to reiterate that I'm no game developer, but I know for a fact that if Call of Duty had to render and load 100 to 150 operators that are all like super customized down to the knee pads, that game would crash. That's a lot of assets to find, pick out, and load into a game with the already huge map. But also, do you remember, let's go back to a gem of a game called Black Ops 3. Do you remember the hero challenge where you would get like gold armor for the specialist? There's not even things like that in the game anymore. It's all through a battle pass. And again, it works for a game like Warzone because it is a different game than Call of Duty, even though it is Call of Duty. Now again, that's the paradox. What works for Warzone doesn't work for Call of Duty's multiplayer. But at the same time, that's what's helping keep Call of Duty alive. And I love Call of Duty. I want it to be around forever. The moment that they announce the last Call of Duty is gonna drop, that's like my childhood and teenage years and what seems like my entire 20s just gone, you know? So I'm really glad that they're making the changes to fix Warzone and give the players what they want. I'm really glad that they're making decisions that work for Warzone and keeping the player retention up and keeping Call of Duty alive. But I do feel like it's killing what made Call of Duty, and that's where a lot of the frustration comes. Now, I want you guys to let me know what you think. Do you think it is a paradox, or do you think that Call of Duty's multiplayer is in a good state, it's always been in a good state, or do you think that the decisions made for Warzone don't affect multiplayer the way that I believe? If you guys enjoyed the video, please like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.